Hi, my name's Stephanie, and I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar today, ServiceNow's new Service Portal, Does It Equal a Great Service Catalog? A few quick notes before we start. Your phone lines are muted today, so if you have any questions, please use the chat or the question panel. You can access that from either the toolbar along the left side of your window or along the top if you are in full screen mode. Also, you will find full screen mode to be helpful later during Jeff's demo. So you might want to consider that doing that now. And lastly, everyone on the call today will receive an email from ReadyTalk within the next 24 hours with a link to both the recording of this event as well as a download of the slides. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Don Casson, CEO of Evergreen Systems. Don?
Thank you, Stephanie. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Don Casson, CEO of Evergreen, and with me is my normal co-host, Mr. Jeff Benedict, who heads up our ITSM practice and leads our innovation efforts. And I'm a slide ahead already. How about that? If you're new to our series, our webinar series, welcome. And if you're a past attendee, thanks for joining us again. Our goal is always to share valuable information and insights you can use in your planning and activities right now. The topic we'll explore today is essentially ServiceNow's new service portal. Does it equal a great service catalog? So here's our agenda. After a very little bit about Evergreen, we'll dive into the topic. And beyond that, we will briefly demonstrate some of the concepts we've discussed in our always evolving view of a very advanced self-service portal and catalog experience built on ServiceNow. Then we'll answer questions if you have any. Evergreen is a U.S.-based consulting firm, and we've worked with hundreds of mid-market, Fortune 1000 companies, and public sector organizations to help them improve their IT service management execution. Over the past 18 years, we've delivered more than 4,000 ITSM projects. We are a full lifecycle firm. We have both process and technology consulting in one company. The benefit of that, our customers don't really have to be the systems integrator. We are one of only two top-tier U.S. ServiceNow Gold partners, and we have over a decade of domain experience in every area of the ServiceNow portfolio, but we view all of this from a perspective we call customer-centric service management. At Evergreen, we think traditional ITSM thinking is just plain wrong because it puts the customer, the people that we're really doing this for, last. It's hard to believe, but it's true. In most cases, it takes a couple of years to even think about the customer. About 3 years ago, we really took notice of the beautiful self-service experiences we were having as consumers with Amazon, Apple, Airbnb, Uber, Google, and many others, and wondered why our ITSM customers can't have the same thing. Well, guess what? We found out they can. So we started challenging our thinking on ITSM, and as a result began looking at everything we did from customer in first rather than IT out. And that's the essence of customer-centric ITSM. If we start with the customer, we do things differently. We focus on preventing incidents rather than just handling them. We use self-service and automation across ITSM to make customers happier and reduce the work of IT. We see services as end-to-end team value chains rather than disconnected silos. In knowledge, it can become a powerful, beautiful, self-enabling experience we use to change the value of those enabling technologies for all of our customers. As we work with clients across the United States, here is the number one problem they have, well, they tell us that they have. They cannot meet their ServiceNow demand. Here's what they say. It exceeds our resources, but it can be, can have peaks and valleys as well. Skilled resources are scarce. It can take 6 months to become capable. Then they get hired away by consulting firms. Also, we may not have a lot of developers or a true solution architect to lead us. When our people need help, where can they turn? Is a wiki enough? How do we even know if we're doing the right things? And even with expensive consultants, contracts, task orders, invoicing, all these things are a lot of work. And we educate them on our business, and then they're gone. We think that traditional service model is broken as well, and it has to change. So we built Evergreen Evolve. Evolve is flexible expertise on demand delivered by a global workforce of senior implementation certified ServiceNow experts. We don't hire juniors. We hire the best, pay them well, keep our overhead razor thin, and have a single lean management structure, which is pretty unique, one Evergreen worldwide. This keeps our people happy, so we have a lot less turnover. Our competitors often have 20 to 30% turnover. Ours is less than 5% per year. We then match this with U.S. solutions architects and U.S. account managers, so you get the best of both worlds. Evergreen Evolve is available three ways. The first is task-based. You can use it when you want. The second is staff augmentation, and this is best when you have a certain level of demand you need to meet. You get a consistent number of hours every month. EE consultants become part of your team, and this is the most cost-effective approach with rates beginning at $65 an hour for senior, fully certified folks. Third is new, called EE Complete. It's one agreement that can handle all your ServiceNow demand, or as much of it as you want, with one contract, if you wanted to. Strategy, roadmaps, consulting, project-based needs, and ongoing development at blended rates in the $90 to $115 an hour range. You get an affordable, committed team of experts backed by the rest of Evergreen, and those people know your business and can provide thought leadership and flex quickly with you as needed. So let's get to our topic today. Service Portal was released in May 2016 as part of Helsinki. Actually, earlier parts of it came out in Geneva. For those of you who attended K16, you saw Fred Luddy, the ServiceNow founder, demonstrate Service Portal's power on stage. Evergreen's had developer program early access, and we have closely analyzed Service Portal's functionality even prior to its release, and we'll explore some of that today. I'd like to say right up front, this is a big deal. The CMS is a foundational technology layer that provides customer interaction across all ServiceNow applications. It's like replacing the second story of a three-story house. The high points are the use of leading industry standard components like AngularJS and Bootstrap, a responsive framework so your experience is ubiquitous across your platforms, and creating a consistent user experience. Here are some things Service Portal brings us. While all these are interesting, we are most excited about those highlighted above in green. Widgets is a powerful ability to create workflows and include third-party content pretty easily. That's how our lives really work, right? Think of them like microservices. Moving from one-to-one interaction to collaborative interaction is a very big deal. It enables better self-service, faster learning, and automatically curated knowledge through the community. Need to replace the fog lights on your 2001 Suburban or fix your KitchenAid dishwasher? I did. And I found step-by-step videos on YouTube for both of them. That's the power of collaborative. Last, true mobile clients will enable service integration where you are with what and whom is there with you. That starts to sound like the Internet of Things. So for those of us trying to provide a better customer-centric service experience, this is the big question. Is Service Portal a service catalog solution? And the answer is no. It was intended to be a modern platform upon which better solutions can be built. And boy, is it that. Area by area, let's look at what Service Portal brings, what you need, what gaps exist, and how you can meet them. Now, we've done about 40 webinars over the past 2.5 years, always focused on giving you value, and that has not changed. But today, we're looking at technology, and when we discuss these gaps and how you can meet them, many of the answers will be in what we have built for that problem area, because that's exactly what we did when we looked at it. So I apologize in advance if it sometimes looks a little salesy. What I would ask you to do is try not to think of that, or try to think of that as functionality, and decide whether or not that functionality has value for you. Service Portal brings a basic request functionality which you can easily build on. It's a good starting point, like a simple request catalog. It doesn't distinguish between requests and services. And since it doesn't have a concept of services per se, there's no service quality feedback or management capability around a service out of the box. When you open the item to request Oracle database in Service Portal, you find a simple request form for Oracle Database. A nice starting place, but the customer needs more than that. Oracle Database hosting is a service because it's durable over time. It has expectations of quality of service, service hours, and service availability. Asking for it is a request. So it's important to understand both services and requests, and that every request is actually attached to some service. Here's an example of a service called expense management. As a customer, I can quickly decide if I want it, and if so, see and select from the request types I can access right from the service. That's the natural flow of work for a complete customer experience end to end. Service Portal gives you the ability to create new requests and supporting workflows easily and quickly. It's a very powerful capability. But that can also create a problem. You can quickly build hundreds of requests and services, all with unique look and feel. Your customers won't like that. Think about Amazon. As customers, we love the fact that it's a consistent end-to-end customer experience every single time. In fact, we're so used to it that we don't even have to think about it to use it. Your customers will expect a consistent customer experience. So we extend Service Portal with a consistent service design process which easily flows into a consistent and complete service and request presentation that your customers see. Service Portal provides you an attractive list of potential categories for your requests, which is a good starting point for you to think about how you might organize this. This works fine for 10 or 15 requests. But what happens when you have hundreds of requests and services? At that point, we need a consistent hierarchical approach to organizing our requests and services, which helps both us and our customers. To meet the challenge of hundreds of services, we extend Service Portal with a visual service taxonomy approach. We created this. It works in a mind mapping technology, and it works for both the customers and the providers. It's a lot like the Dewey Decimal System is for libraries. Once it's agreed upon, the taxonomy, we import it into Service Portal, and we're showing you an example of it here on the right. If we're looking at an IT service catalog, on the upper right, you can see 6 categories of services. Then, if we drill into a category, in this case, business applications, we drill in, we drop down, and you see 9 categories of business apps. If we drill into finance, for example, we then see 5 financial services. A good service taxonomy equally benefits the customers and the providers. We said earlier that Service Portal was designed to deliver a modern user experience and empower developers with tools to be much more creative, much more quickly. Users and developers were the focus of Fred Luddy's keynote speech at K16. But if we're going to build and deliver great services consistently, we need to broaden who we're focused on. Every service has 3 key constituencies: the customer, the providers, which actually includes the developers, and the managers. All must be involved and have their needs met to create any truly viable service. The customer wants an excellent customer experience. And to deliver that, we must think like the customer and design from the customer in, not IT out, or they'll reject it. The provider wants execution effectiveness, and if we don't build it in a way that makes them more efficient and effective, then they won't support the change with the customers and will work around the system. The manager wants governance and accountability, and without these, we're flying blind. We cannot price and deliver a service consistently with high quality. The next 2 slides speak to this. There's a ballet of sorts that exists between the customer and the provider, and the better we do, the closer we get, and vice versa. We see the real proof of this relationship and how far we can go combining self-service and automation. This is the ultimate test of the principle we have: give the customers what they want to get what we need. My customers ask me, what percentage of our services can be self-service or fully automated? And I answer, how about 100%? They scoff. I don't blame them, but that's what Amazon does. They have the most highly rated retail customer experience, higher than Nordstrom or Costco, and you can't talk to them. Pretty amazing. Now, the truth, whether we get to 100% or not, isn't the point. For most of us, there is a lot of potential for self-service plus automation if we open our minds to it. Service Portal today provides a good basic request portal starting place. But if we're going to build and deliver quality services, we need a good way to manage them. That's the other side of the coin. Evergreen extends Service Portal to meet that need. Here you see the customer-facing view of a service on the left-hand side and the provider or manager's view on the right-hand side. Here's a quick look at the Service Manager's workspace we developed. It includes information on customer satisfaction, quality, service health, availability, and delivery. I can easily see who my customers are and what they're currently asking for. The idea behind it is to make it the one place where the service manager goes to reactively and proactively manage their service and interact with their customers every day. Service Portal follows ServiceNow's direction of multiple independent service portals for different functional areas. While this makes it easier for the providers, we think it makes it harder for the customers, and they really won't like it. Imagine if the Airbnb shopping experience for beach rentals was completely different for North Carolina and South Carolina, and one was good and the other was bad. Would you say some of Airbnb is good and some is bad? Nope. You would be mad and you wouldn't use it. So Evergreen extends Service Portal by creating a unified customer experience at the highest level for services, requests, search, help, knowledge, and status, everything, because we believe that's what the customer wants. Below that, we support some catalogs, which also gives the individual providers the latitude they need to build and deliver great services, so it meets both spectrums. Here, we're looking at the Information Service Catalog. Right? If you look inside that circle, but if you look also inside the circle, you see other catalogs too. You see facilities, HR, etc., procurement, and you can change your view to see any one or all of them. It's up to you, the customer. As you can see here, Service Portal comes out of the box with some basic self-service functionality, and you can very easily build more. We extend Service Portal with deep and broad self-service capabilities, including context-sensitive help, a single unified status portal, more powerful search across the whole platform, a self-service genius bar, and 5-star social feedback, just to name a few. Speaking of the 5-star customer social feedback, we have yet to have a client who wants to start with that day one. It can seem pretty intimidating. Knowing that, like a lot of the added functionality we built, we made it easy to turn it on or off with a toggle switch. Here's a little deeper look at how we extend Get Help. Service Portal starts with help topics on a single level with basic functionality to take an action. We extend that by trying to predict what the user needs, adding drill-down capabilities, suggestions, and tag search to dig deeper, with the intent of enabling the customer to self-service answering their questions or resolving their issues. Another area where IT gets a lot of workload is in status request checks. On average, it makes up between 20 and 35% of the demand coming to IT support. Service Portal brings a combined list to view for the customer with the ability to drill in for more information. In Service Portal, status for each of the different portals is separate. For example, you can't check the status of an open HR request if you're in the IT portal. You have to switch portals. Not good. Evergreen extends Service Portal by creating a single unified searchable status portal across all your items, IT or non-IT. Additionally, we give the customer the means to interact with the provider right from the status portal at the point of service to provide updates, ask questions, or confirm resolution, all aimed at reducing the volume of status check requests coming into the service desk, but also improving the customer's experience through beautiful self-service. Last but not least, Service Portal is a modern platform upon which better solutions can be built. Evergreen extends Service Portal with our employee self-service catalog and portal solution, which operates on Service Portal platform native to ServiceNow. It was designed to be a complete end-to-end customer portal solution out of the box, which you don't have to build, you use. It's already built. It has 6 themes to choose from, 15 distinct landing pages for true end-to-end service experience, and over 3,000 lines of code today. It's available as a scoped application on the ServiceNow store, so it helps you upgrade much more smoothly. We have to certify this application with each new release of ServiceNow prior to that new release going into the marketplace. So we have to test to the same level and same specifications that ServiceNow tests their own code. This is also the most viewed and most purchased product on the ServiceNow software store. For Helsinki, you can continue to run the CMS version you have today. It will be supported for some time into the future. Or if you want to, you can move to Service Portal. Helsinki supports both versions. Our solution does the same. It works on either CMS or Service Portal. Many of our customers ask, how do we go from where we are with CMS to Service Portal and also improve the customer experience? If you're interested in that question, 90% of our customers start with a short duration strategy and roadmap engagement. And this is something we delivered a couple of dozen times now, so we get terrific reuse, which allows us to continually bring more value for the price and get a lot done in a very, very short period of time. Not only does it deliver a detailed 3-phase strategy and roadmap, it brings all the IP we have developed to help you around taxonomy, around service governance, around service design process, and around principles behind service portfolio. We teach you how to use it, and you get to keep it. We even create a working future state employee self-service portal and catalog demo sandbox for you with your look and feel, which you can use along with your roadmap to actually demonstrate what the future of customer-centric service might look like in your organization. And all this is done within a 2-week period for $17,500. So that's all I've got to cover today from a presentation standpoint. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, and he'll demonstrate some of the functionality we talked about, concepts we talked about in the webinar so far.
Thank you, Don. So I'm going to kind of do 2 parts here. I'm going to start kind of as Don did, kind of introducing the Service Portal application or plugin that has been introduced with Helsinki, and also kind of show some of the enhancements or updates that we've made to with our own scoped application to enhance the portal. So as Don indicated, one of the main catalysts for creating this new portal application, and again, this is as an alternative to the legacy content management system, not a replacement for, but one of the main catalysts was to leverage a new modern web toolkit. So kind of behind the curtains, using things like AngularJS, Bootstrap. So some of the things you get with that is you're going to get kind of a responsive framework. So as I whittle down to a smaller width device, it'll adjust and adapt to that, so I can interact with kind of this on my tablet, iPhone, as well as my standard laptop, desktop, right? Another thing that ServiceNow did is they use this as an opportunity to inject some of the new feature functionality they've added in recent releases. So some of the things you'll find are things like the chat have been updated to use the new Connect features of ServiceNow. So it's kind of a newer interface in terms of kind of how it looks and how it interacts behind the curtains. Not to mention the Connect interface, the Connect platform can also be used beyond self-service. It can be used for collaborative exchange of information amongst your peers. So some of the things this supports is I can kind of take and drag and drop things like screenshots into here, right? Obviously I can use this on my mobile devices as well, and I can get kind of more modern chat experience all in all. Another feature that's a platform feature that's been incorporated into the Service Portal is this community social Q&A, which is really an extension to the knowledge base of ServiceNow, and basically works where as a community we can ask questions, we can then respond with answers to those questions, and then we can kind of vote on and respond to which questions are best, and then flag a question or an answer as the best answer for a particular question, and ultimately those bubble up to the surface and help our consumers get answers through some of the questions they might have. Behind the Service Portal, so being a new modern toolkit also came with a new kind of configuration set of tools to configure this Service Portal application. So what you're looking at here is basically the landing page for configuring the Service Portal. Let me walk you through a little bit here. So a couple things you can do from a branding perspective. You've got a place where you can set the logo, set the title, some of the primary colors for the background, the navigator, the buttons can be set in one place to kind of overarch and set the overarching look and feel. And then there also is a new kind of page designer, which takes into account those responsive frameworks and allows you to kind of build a page and then drop, Don mentioned widgets, but drop the different widgets onto the page. So on the left here, I've got different layouts I can choose from to lay out my grid. And then I can choose my various widgets and drop them in here. And each of these widgets can take different parameters to say a single widget can be used, in this case, like in multiple different charts or graphs. The other thing I can do with this is I can kind of test out my pages in terms of how they're going to look, both from a different device perspective, so I can see how they look at on a tablet, how do they look on a smartphone. Also, I can see how do they look from a different portal perspective. So Don mentioned, HR portal versus IT portal. So the same thing can be done in terms of looking at how does my page look in this portal versus a different one. To kind of complete the toolkit here, there is a widget editor. This is where our developers come to do most of their work. And so this is where we can basically define what is the widget HTML, how do we want to apply unique specific styles or CSS to those particular HTML. And then we've got our AngularJS controller code, as well as we've got some server JavaScript code that can actually interact between each other to pass data back and forth. So this is kind of where our developers go. And the thing I wanted to highlight with this is just in the old world, the majority of stuff was done with what was called jelly code, and you will not find any jelly code whatsoever in the new Service Portal framework. And that was one of the big missions with this particular application, was to move away from that jelly code. One other thing I want to highlight to you, I'll just do this in some slides really quickly, is the Service Portal is accessible from the native iOS and Android applications that ServiceNow has within those respective stores that you can install on those devices. And this is going to bring both accessibility to your configured portal from those devices kind of through the applications, but also is going to give you some of the benefits of those devices, such as your camera, for taking pictures, for doing a barcode kind of scan, as well as kind of your GPS location tracking kind of elements. The other thing I want, just a couple screenshots here. So as Don indicated, the current strategy of ServiceNow, when they launched with Helsinki, is to introduce different portals for different departments or functional areas. So you will see kind of separate plugins for an HR portal, separate plugin for customer service portal, and they really are disconnected as it stands right now. All right, so let me transition a little bit to some of the things that we do to kind of enhance and kind of complete the portal solution. So one thing Don mentioned is we do have, as part of our application, a number of on-off switches, toggle switches. We really tried to make it as easy to configure the portal and extend the portal functionality through table records, as well as through kind of these toggle on-off switches. In addition, we do package a number of themes that come with our application. Kind of our default theme is one that we saw in a lot of the screenshots of Don's slide deck. It's kind of this Metro style theme. Also, again, everything is responsive based, so you will have kind of an experience that works on those different devices. You'll also see amongst our themes different ones that kind of position the navigator on different sides, like on the left, maybe highlight the search as a starting point, etc. So the one I'm going to kind of use for most of the demo today, this is our kind of Now theme, which kind of looks a little like the ServiceNow theme, or the Service Portal kind of out of the box. And let me go another area we kind of hit on that we kind of enhance. So in the Get Help area, our mission on this particular page is really to push self-service towards the end user and trying to help them solve their own particular issues that they may have, rather than having to escalate them as submitted tickets. So rather than drop into a form to submit a new ticket, we kind of prompt them for a series of questions. and these are obviously configurable. But you'll notice these do go across different areas. We've got HR questions in here, facilities questions, IT questions. But the mission here is to kind of get into a topical area. So once I get into a topical area like email access, I can start to reveal, here's someone you might want to chat with or schedule an appointment with for assistance. Here's some knowledge articles you might want to try. And type in my details. And once I put in my details, we can then use that as another deeper level, right? So now we know it's email access, but we also know more specifically this person's having an issue related to emails on their tablets. So here's some knowledge articles that we might want to suggest based off of helping them, right? And we can also then drill in maybe the social Q&A, look at live feed, or federate out to other sources of information to help self-solve the issue for the user. You know, obviously, as a last resort, we can always submit a ticket, which then drops me into a page where I can track kind of how my instance is being handled and worked. Again, since we captured a bunch of information up front about what the topical area is, the things that we showed and revealed to the user, that can also be funneled to the fulfillment group to maybe better assist and better resolve this particular user's issue. Just want to highlight, if I go back to the Get Help, if I go HR, say policy, some of the things that are different here, right, are different knowledge articles being suggested, a different expert for me to connect to, as well as a different form for me to submit my, in this case, HR policy related question. Don mentioned kind of Genius Bar. So this is our kind of schedule appointment feature that we have in here. So any of these experts can make themselves available on a schedule to make appointments. So it kind of works like this, where if the number of appointments have been consumed for a slot, they show up as booked and I can't reserve them. You know, I can obviously try to choose a date, and if it's outside the window, I can't make an appointment there. And then once I find a time that works for me and that's available for selection, I can obviously reserve that. And then in essence, I'm going to get kind of that one-on-one consultation advice, but on a schedule that works for me. So maybe right now it doesn't work for me to engage in a chat, but rather tomorrow at 8 a.m. works better for me, so I'm going to kind of get that appointment. So this is going to obviously work towards driving that service for me. So one thing I noticed with this theme is the search is pretty prominent on this home page. So this is obviously one of those environments where we're kind of suggesting to look for information, look for answers through search. One of the things that we do with our search is we try to make it smarter. So when I do a search for something like I want an iPad, a couple things are happening behind the curtain here. And this is done through some mapping, but we basically are pulling out what are the notable keywords. We're mapping those to specific classifications. You notice that we have isolated these results to tablets. We've also isolated the results to catalog items only, and that's mostly because of the language that I used that said I was looking or wanted a new iPad, so I must be wanting to request something versus getting help. It kind of hones me into a specific area, and that can obviously be configured, but basically the goal there is to try to make that search a little smarter by adding additional filters and maybe targeting my search in a certain area. Another example of my request is we can also, based off the search, maybe redirect the user someplace else. So what's happening here, since I did a search that looked like I was looking for status, rather than show me a search results of catalog items that contain the word of status or the word of request, it's redirecting me over to my status page to kind of track and check the status of my various requests, which I can then interact with or track the progress with. If I were to be a little more specific with my search, so what is the status of, say, one of my tickets, make sure I get the right numbers in there, it would kind of work like you would expect, right? Where instead of taking me to my list, it takes me to a specific record that I'm looking for. So that's kind of how our search kind of helps to improve those things. So let's look at kind of requesting goods and services. So again, as we indicated, there's options here in terms of if we've got multiple different catalogs, we can start from the catalog perspective. We can flatten this and show all items across all catalogs. In this case, we're starting with selecting a catalog. Maybe I'm looking for something in our IT catalog. I can dig deeper into our various classifications. Maybe I'm looking for a laptop. right? And then I can ultimately find a laptop that I want to add. I can select the various inputs that I need to have, answer questions to, either add to my cart or submit this directly and get my laptop. Further, obviously, the requesting can cover more services as well. So if I were to look for, say, I go to our services area, training, maybe what I'm looking for is requesting a new training environment. I'm going to pop this out into a separate screen. And one of the things that I see in this, on this particular item that I'm requesting the training environment, and this is what Don alluded to, is that there's the request and then there's the durable service that it's associated to. So here's a case where it is showing me that this is part of a durable service, this technology training services. So I can either proceed with my request, or if I want to learn more about the service, I can click here on the service information. And here I can find out who owns it, kind of how it's been rated to date, some information about the service, kind of who it's available to, some of those health feedback, and any health and status information. I'll show you another one, an example too. So there's some other tabs that can show up depending on how the service has been set up. But also I can see things like maybe some of the, if I'm new to this service, what are some of the frequently asked questions that people are oftentimes asking, and I can maybe learn more about how to navigate or work this particular service for my betterment. Let's go back to that request. So the thing I want to highlight or want to show with this request is some of the things that Don mentioned in terms of kind of how Amazon works, like self-service and automating all the various services. So one of the things that's happening here is I'm requesting kind of a training environment where I can learn a new tool. So in this case, I want to learn more about Drupal as an application. And I want kind of a play environment for me to kind of test with that. And I can choose to start this environment when it's spun up for me. I can also choose kind of when to shut it down. And maybe I just need this for a couple of weeks, so I'm actually good with this end date of the 2nd. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this particular request. And this one throws me into a slightly different page than before. My other request that you saw when I submitted my incident and also my kind of make an appointment request dropped me into kind of my status page. And this one's dropped me into more of a timeline viewing page. And the reason for that is that this one is one of those workflows that is basically, for the most part, fully automated. There's an approval that has to take place up front, but once that approval is done, everything provisions without any tasks or human inputs. So it's kind of allowing me to kind of track the progress of this kind of end-to-end as it's being fulfilled. So this one is first routed for someone for approval. Over here in a different session, and that person just has a new item that just popped up in their list. Basically this new training environment, approve, reject, go ahead and approve it. And then it's going to kind of, this is where it's going to start doing that labor, right? It's going to go out there and start to reach out and provision that environment for me. It's going to auto refresh and kind of show me that it's complete. All the details of this request are, are kind of captured on my behalf, all the approvals and everything. So I'm going to kind of wait a moment for this thing to complete. Just going to look at the request just to make sure it is indeed processing. And just to show you, this is kind of a legacy native view of the workflow. So I can see it's kind of in a process of provisioning that environment. And it might take it a moment or two. Go out here. So, and it's kind of still running. Let's give it a second to process. And I guess while it's running, let me move on and just show you something different. I'll come back to that. So let me do this. So the other area I just want to kind of show you before I show you the completed state of that request is I kind of showed you that technology training service. So I could start, to get to the service information, I can either start the way I did, which was kind of requesting goods and services and then finding the service associated to it. Or I can also start from kind of our overall service definition, service taxonomy page, which in this case organizes my services by high-level category and subcategory. Again, I can, and this is a flattened view across all our catalogs. I can filter this to say just show me the ones that are HR related, or show me those ones that are IT related, right, or all. I also have options to see which services I'm a specific subscriber to. I can kind of sort these by which ones have the highest ratings, right, to look at my different services. Also, there's a concept of ones that I own, so I can also see those that I own from a perspective, right? And just to kind of go back to taxonomy page for a second, and then from here I can jump to any one of these sections. If I wanted to see something that was maybe in our professional services area, I can jump down. You'll see this is where that training service was that I looked at. To show a different one, let me go into HR, our Workday service. And this one does have a few bits of information that are different than the other one that I showed. So this is the customer's view of this service. Again, I can see who owns it, kind of ratings to date, some at-a-glance information, which can be pretty custom in terms of what you want to display there. In this case, we're showing who it's available to and requirements. What's in scope, what's out of scope, different offerings and commitments that are being made, and then health and status information, which in this case I can see there's some upcoming planned maintenance for this particular service, as well as some of the feedback that consumers have provided to date and how well it's been rated. And again, frequently asked questions and then an option to make requests in context to this particular service. Now, one other thing is, in this case, I am the owner of this particular service. I have a couple options as well. I have the ability to edit this service as well as see my management dashboard. Let me take you to the dashboard so you can see what's here. And so the things I'm seeing on this particular page, one are, and a lot of these are tied kind of from the bottom up in terms of what my commitments are that I've been made to deliver as part of this service. So as part of my commitments, I've got availability targets, resolution targets, delivery targets. And so my alerts are associated with that in terms of as I'm getting close to breaching one of those targets, it's going to send me alerts related to that. My health information is tied to my availability. And if there were any active incidents or requests that I needed to respond to, I'd see those in this area as well. I can also expand on this and see my health of not just my service, but some of my seem to be components that my service depends on. So I can see in this view, I can also kind of launch more of a map view, which is going to give me kind of this dependency map. How does my service depend on other services, and if there are any alerts on here, I would see those as well. Then I've got reports, right, how I've been trending or tracking to my availability, which I can also filter. And then there is some qualitative information that I get about kind of service feedback ratings, negative. And then on the right, this is an area where I can make some adjustments to my service. I can adjust my offerings. I can adjust those frequently asked questions that show up in my tombstone, as well as the things you can request in context to it. So let me go back to, and I'll come back to the service area in a moment too, but let me come back to my requests now that it looks like it's complete. So it went out, provisioned an environment for me. Some of the things I see in this little timeline view, I see, oh, here's my environment that it provisioned for me. I can go out and launch that, which then I can go out and spin up my environment, test it out, play with my new Drupal application that was just provisioned for me. And I can also then provide some feedback. If I'm not satisfied, if something's not working right, I can say, no, not working correctly. Right, provide some feedback. In this case, that's going to then trigger what is an automated process is now going to trigger a human to actually look at my particular issue. So in this case, I go back to my request. What it just did is it spinned off a task for our group that supports this particular service to remediate my particular issue. It sees my details that were passed in about what's not working correctly. And then this individual, this group would then accept, resolve my issue, communicate it back to me, close out the task. And then if I come back to here, and this page auto refreshes with another prompt, am I now satisfied? And ultimately if I say yes, and as you might expect, it moves to a completed status, all is happy. I've got my environment to work with for a couple of weeks to kind of test this out. There's also, along this same use case of provisioning these environments, we do also propagate an area where they, via the portal, can see that environment that's been spun up for them. So I could come back here and access it from this view as well. All right. So let me, one last page I want to hit on in context to this service catalog section, and it relates to service health. So you'll see there's a widget on the home page here for outages and alerts. If I click more information, it's going to take me to more of a macro view of our outages and alerts. So there's a couple things here. One, I can subscribe kind of on-off switches to these different kind of components. I've also got, you'll see kind of an area where I show kind of plan maintenance as well as the kind of taxonomy view of our services and how well they performed over the last 5 days. So there's some options here. Again, I can filter this by catalog to show just those that are there. I can change some of the grouping to break it down by more levels. I can also filter into a specific kind of keyword, which then adjusts my view to just showing those kind of items in here that contain the word bond, which basically is one service in this particular view. And then there's some other things I can look at in terms of the health or the history of this, in terms of seeing what's the overall health of this particular service, and unsubscribe, subscribe to updates. So going forward, if there's an outage to, say, bond trading, I'll get notified of that particular outage, and I'll also get notified if there's restoration or other changes to a given outage activity. So I think that covers what I wanted to show today. I hope this was helpful, both seeing kind of what comes new with Helsinki with the Service Portal as a framework and an application, as well as some of the things that we've done to extend and make a bigger toolkit and a bigger solution to that starting point.
Thank you, Jeff. So, you know, one of the things that comes out of that, you can see that from Jeff's demo that we put a lot of time and energy into not just the customer experience, but the provider as well. Because having a beautiful customer experience, you know, or engaging environment is not anything if the provider can't deliver the service against it, right? That beautiful front door means nothing if we can't execute on the backside and manage, you know, setting expectations and delivering it, right? So we balance that and pay a lot of attention to both, and that's one of the areas that we've extended quite a bit, the functionality of the Service Portal is from the provider's ability to deliver. So if you're interested in that, or you might think about some possible next steps, perhaps you're interested in the self-service portal and catalog that Jeff demonstrated. It is available as a fully functioning self-service demo. It's fun. It's easy to use. We have 1,000 people who've signed up for it and are using it. Maybe not all of them right now, but hopefully. You can get your own login on our website and be using it in a couple of minutes. Or you can download a demo version of it from the ServiceNow store if you want to do that and put it into your test environment, your dev environment, or something like that. Beyond that, perhaps you're interested in establishing a better service catalog direction and roadmap. If so, maybe take a deeper look at our 2-week offering. There's lots of information on that on our website. And last, in moving to Helsinki, if you're interested in also improving your service catalog solution, not just moving like for like, we're offering a no-cost 1-day migration analysis. Just let us know. So if any of these are of interest to you, you can please reply via email, and we'll get in touch with you. And so I think that wraps it up for the presentation today, and we can open it up for any questions you guys might have.
Okay, great. Thanks, Don. We do have a few questions, and also I want to remind folks, if you want to submit your questions, you can use the chat or the questions panel to send those in. Jeff, it looks like so far our questions are mostly for you, or all for you actually. The first one, does the Service Portal support all browsers?
So good question. It actually hits on something I did want to bring up as well that maybe was not as evident in our presentation. But so first of all, the Service Portal is a Helsinki-specific version. So it wasn't something that ServiceNow created that was backported to Geneva or Fuji. So you'd have to upgrade to Helsinki in order to get access to the Service Portal. So that's kind of step number one. The other thing is, for the most part, Service Portal does support nearly all browsers. The areas where we've still seen some customers have some lag behind, it doesn't support Internet Explorer 9 or below, and so we do still see some customers that do use Internet Explorer 8 or 9, and that is an area where the Service Portal doesn't work. But all other modern browsers, your Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Opera, are all supported.
Okay, great. And I've had a question come in asking if we've done any work with Istanbul yet.
Yes. So Istanbul, we are, and so Don mentioned that it be kind of our scoped application and kind of version support. So by being a scoped application in the store, we are part of ServiceNow's technology partner program, which means that we get early access to the versions that are starting to come out to both validate and test, as well as to adjust, enhance our application to align with some of the new feature functionality that comes out with the release. So we have been actively involved for the last maybe 3 weeks with Istanbul. We have done some validation and testing of our application with Istanbul, and we'll be planning to have another version update to our application around the time, maybe a month after the release of Istanbul.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff. Another question, does the service owner dashboard provide proactive alerts for the commitments?
Yeah, so obviously, if you go to that service owner dashboard, there were alerts on the page. But we don't obviously anticipate that a service owner is just going to be sitting on that page all day long waiting for alerts. So typically, how it's done is a lot of they're tied typically to commitments that are associated with the service, and those commitments can be linked to things like SLA records in ServiceNow. Which then SLA records you can attach to proactive workflows. So usually the model is something to where you would do as a percentage of a threshold. So as you get, maybe 90% of a breach, you send certain notifications. At 100%, maybe you send other HEPA notifications. But we've got, a plethora of options there too, whether they're SMS or email or push messages, et cetera.
Okay, great. And another question, Jeff, is there an assessment tool to detect if our system is ready for a move to Service Portal?
So good question. So not exactly, and obviously Don mentioned just a slide previously, kind of an assessment, a one-day kind of assessment if you're ready. So that's certainly a service that we can provide to kind of look at how you've configured your CMS, look at how you've configured your catalog items, and some of the challenges you may have in moving to kind of the Service Portal. There is a tool out there that may help, and that is that ServiceNow Support has a tool called ACE, which I think stands for Automated Configuration Evaluator. And some of the things that ACE could bring to benefit is that there are a few areas, specifically in the catalog and the client scripting aspect of the catalog, that don't translate from the native view of ServiceNow or the CMS view of ServiceNow into the Service Portal, primarily the things like DOM manipulation or kind of how you're doing glide record calls, things like that kind of need to be tweaked to support Service Portal.
Okay, great. Jeff, another question's just come in. Specific to the ServiceNow tool, what are the overall results with the cloud-based solution?
Overall results with the cloud-based solution. Not sure I understand the question.
Yeah.
It might be a performance question.
Maybe Eduardo, if you could clarify that a bit for us, that you're looking for. Give him a minute.
You could make. It might be performance driven. Jeff, you could speak to that and what we've seen performance-wise, from the Helsinki standpoint.
Yeah, from I guess kind of compare and contrast, at least for those that for those customers that are current ServiceNow customers that are using the CMS to date and are looking at maybe moving to the Service Portal. I will mention that there are, from my experience to date, there are definitely performance improvements moving to the Service Portal. Some of them are really based off of just the architecture of it, in the sense that the way Service Portal works is nearly everything is kind of loaded up in memory and cache on your load of the page. And so a lot of like the headers and your transition from page to page doesn't do a reload of those components or those widgets. So like once it's loaded, you're kind of there. And so there's some usability performance benefits from a user perspective because they're able to navigate and move around. Whereas the legacy CMS, every page change you made basically would reload the header, footer, body, or whatever UI macros or dynamic content blocks or blocks that you have on the page would all reload every time you move from page to page, which that's not the case with the Service Portal.
Okay, great. And it looks like that's it. That is what he was asking. So thank you for clarifying that. I'm going to give folks one more second to send in any last-minute questions, and while I'm waiting on those, I'll remind you that you will receive an email from ReadyTalk, the same email that you from the same email address you received the confirmation for this event. That will include a link to this recording as well as to the slides, so keep an eye out for that in the next 24 hours. And lastly, if you visit the resources page on evergreensys.com, we do have a webinar coming up talking about whether or not CMS or Service Portal and what you should do about Helsinki, whether or not you should make that move to Service Portal. So that's on October 5th, and you can find that on the resources page of evergreensys.com. So it doesn't look like we have any more questions, so I'll thank everyone for joining us today, and we hope you join us again in October. Thanks. Bye-bye.